Strength is often erroneously perceived as the volume of manifested aggression or overwhelming dominance. In reality, true strength is the silence within the storm. In the world of money and sales, where every word is a vector of influence and every emotion is a potential transaction, self-possession becomes the supreme currency. My task is not to teach you how to suppress feelings. Suppression requires effort and leads to the wear and tear of the system. My task is to teach you how to decompose reactions, turning fear, greed, or anger into dry data for analysis. We shall view human interaction as a game of chess, where the biochemistry of the brain dictates the rules, and the winner is the one capable of observing their own limbic system from the outside. Welcome to the Laboratory of Behavioral Analysis. Here, there is no morality. There are only causes and effects. Module 1. The Architecture of Imposed Value. Give a man what he craves and he will become your slave. Show him how to lose it and he will become your tool. 1. Stage. The scenario. The observation. A restaurant on the 40th floor of a skyscraper. Two people are at the table. Julian, whose suit costs more than the annual income of an average manager, and Marcus, a potential investor whose fingers are barely noticeably tapping the edge of a crystal glass. The sum of $500,000 is merely the entrance ticket to the first circle, Julian says. His voice sounds at a low, steady frequency. He does not look at Marcus. His gaze is directed at the horizon beyond the window. Julian notes, the pupils of Marcus dilated by 0.3 millimeters at the mention of the sum. Activation of the reward system. Marcus takes a sip of water. His Adam's apple twitches, an attempt to swallow the rising anxiety caused by the cognitive dissonance between the desire for profit and the fear of loss. I heard that the project was valued at $300,000 last week, Marcus says, attempting to regain control of the conversation, an attempt at rationalization and lowering the price anchor. Julian pauses for 5 seconds. He does not blink. A process is unfolding in his head. The subject is trying to use information as a shield. My task is to make this shield too heavy for him. $300,000 was the price for the opportunity to observe. Julian shifts his gaze to Marcus. His face is absolutely motionless. $500,000 is the price for the right to own. You may consider this for exactly 3 minutes while I finish my tea. Creation of artificial time scarcity and shifting the social hierarchy into leader-follower mode. Julian feels a slight wave of warmth rising in his own body, a precursor of adrenaline. He takes a slow breath through his nose, concentrating on the coolness of the air in his nostrils. The thought, this is just biology, an ordinary chemical process. I am observing it. The wave subsides. 2. Stage. Psychological scan. System analysis. In this scene, Julian utilizes the anchoring effect mechanism in combination with rigid status management. When the figure of $500,000 was voiced, the brain of Marcus involuntarily accepted it as the new point of reference. Any further bargaining will be built around this amount, rather than the real value of the object. From the perspective of neurobiology, Julian successfully suppresses his limbic response. Instead of entering a fight-or-flight state during the partner's counter-resistance, he uses cognitive reappraisal. He classifies the resistance of Marcus not as a threat, but as an expected variable in the equation. This allows the prefrontal cortex to maintain leadership over the amygdala. Marcus, on the contrary, is in a state of emotional capture. The fear of missing out, FOMO, begins to dominate over his capacity for logical calculation. 3. Stage. Underscore, underscore. Quote, underscore 1, 2, underscore, underscore, the scientific validation. In 1974, psychologists Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman conducted a study demonstrating the power of anchoring. Participants were asked to spin a, quote, 13 that was programmed to stop at either the number 10 or the number 65. After this, They were asked what percentage of African countries belong to the UN. Those who saw the number 10 gave an average estimate of 25%. Those who saw 65 estimated the share of countries at 45%. A completely random number having no relation to reality became the foundation for decision-making. In our scenario, Julian sets this number himself. He understands that Marcus, being under the pressure of uncertainty, is looking for any point of support. Julian gives him this support, but it is constructed so that Marcus finds himself in a disadvantageous position. 4. Stage ___. Quote _14__, the master key. To maintain control in negotiations regarding resources, it is necessary to use the principle of detachment from the nominal value. Control. Principle number 1. The desacralization of figures. Never perceive a price or conditions as a final statement. This is merely a psychoacoustic signal designed to test your system of stability. Practice. As soon as you hear the quote 15 of the opponent, mentally translate this figure into a number of abstract units. Do not allow the brain to paint pictures of losses or acquisitions. Your task is to attack the very process of establishing the anchor, rather than bargaining within its boundaries. 5. Stage ___, quote _16__, a white porcelain cup stands on the table. Steam rises strictly vertically, meeting no air resistance. The surface of the tea is perfectly smooth, like a mirror. In this space, there are no extra sounds, only the barely audible hum of the air conditioning system, maintaining a constant temperature of 22 degrees. Complete order, complete clarity. Module 2. The hierarchy of polite refusal. Quote 17.1. Stage. Quote 18. The observation. A family estate in the suburbs. Evening. Eleanor, the head of an investment family office, sits in a deep armchair in the garden. Caleb, her nephew, stands before her. He has come to ask for financing for his quote 19 startup. Caleb holds a tablet in his hands, but he does not dare to turn it on. Quote 20 Eleanor says, without taking her eyes off the pages of her book. She does not look at her watch, but Caleb knows she is right. Caleb takes a step forward, violating Eleanor's personal space, an attempt at unconscious dominance through physical proximity. The traffic was terrible, Eleanor, but the figures I want to show you. Caleb's voice rises by a semitone, which signals a high level of cortisol and a desire to justify himself. Eleanor slowly closes the book. She does this silently. She fixes her gaze on the bridge of Caleb's nose, a technique that creates psychological pressure without direct eye aggression. Quote 22. Her voice sounds soft, but there is no warmth in it. Direct classification of the opponent's weakness to lower his social status before the negotiations begin. Caleb sits down. His hands lie on his knees, fingers intertwined. He squeezes them so hard that his knuckles turn white. Isometric muscle contraction as an attempt to restrain trembling, a sign of limbic capture. I want $3 million, he blurted out. Eleanor remains silent for exactly 10 seconds. She observes as Caleb begins to adjust his shirt collar, an adaptive manipulation to relieve stress. Tell me not about why you need $3 million, but about why you decided that you are worthy of my time today, she says. She is not fighting his request. She is observing his attempts to justify his existence within her system of coordinates. 2. Stage, psychological scan. System analysis. In this scene, we observe a classic game of status lowering. Eleanor uses the method of social distance and controlled silence. When Caleb arrived late, He already entered the situation with a deficit of status points. Eleanor reinforced this by pointing out his physiological reactions, swaying voice. From the perspective of neurobiology, Eleanor moves Caleb from a state of rational planning, prefrontal cortex, to a state of defense, amygdala. When a person feels that their status is under threat, their cognitive abilities decrease by 20 or even 30%. They begin to make mistakes, speaking too fast, making excuses, and lowering the price. Eleanor, on the other hand, practices status immobility. She does not mirror his fuss. In psychology, this is called a break in rapport. Usually, people subconsciously copy each other's postures to create comfort. Eleanor intentionally maintains a different dynamic, letting Caleb understand. Quote 32.3. Stage. Quote 33. The scientific validation. Biologist and neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky spent decades studying hierarchies in baboons and their connection to stress hormones. He discovered that individuals located on the lower rungs of the social ladder have chronically elevated levels of cortisol. Their bodies are always in a mode of waiting for a catastrophe. However, the most interesting part of his research is the behavior of ___. Quote, _34. True leaders in stable groups manifest a minimum of aggression. They do not need to prove their status. Their calmness is the main marker of strength. As soon as a leader begins to fuss or manifest aggression too often, it is a signal to the system. __. Quote, _35. In our case, Eleanor demonstrates the biological behavior of a __, quote, _36. Her calmness is a tool of suppression more effective than shouting or a direct refusal. She uses the biological predisposition of Caleb to submit to an authority that does not manifest fear. 4. Stage. __. Quote, _37. The master key. To maintain leadership in an informal but important conversation, it is necessary to manage __. Quote, _38. Control principle number 2. Zero reactivity. Your strength is directly proportional to your ability to remain motionless when the interlocutor attempts to evoke an emotion in you: guilt, joy, anger, or fear. Practice. If someone attempts to pressure you or puts you in an awkward position, do not respond instantaneously. Make a pause of 3 seconds. During this time, scan your body. If you feel a constriction in your throat or stomach, relax that zone through an exhale. Your task is to show the interlocutor that their quote 39 did not reach its goal. You are not defending yourself. You are studying them as an interesting but not dangerous phenomenon. 5. Stage. __. Quote, _40. The twilight deepens. The garden is submerged in a deep blue color. Light from the windows of the mansion falls onto the manicured lawn in even rectangles. The air is motionless. Only the distant chirping of cicadas is heard, which seems to be a part of the silence rather than its violation. Every detail of the landscape is in its place, subordinated to a strict plan. Chaos is excluded. Module 3. The Dilemma of False Loyalty. 1. Stage. __. Quote, _41. The observation, midnight. An office made of glass and steel on the 42nd floor. The only source of light is the monitors, flooding the space with a cold blue glow. Marcus sits at the table, having placed his hands on the smooth surface of dark oak. Opposite him stands Caleb, his deputy. Between them lies a thin leather folder. __. Quote, _42. Marcus says. His voice is devoid of modulations. It sounds like a metronome. __. Quote, _43, ___. Creation of a zone of exclusive trust to check for a leak. Marcus notices how Caleb, for a fraction of a second, lingers his gaze on the folder. The left corner of his lips twitches slightly upward, a micro-expression of contempt or self-satisfaction, indicating the presence of hidden knowledge. Caleb takes a step back and crosses his arms over his chest. Quote 44, Caleb replies. Verbal confirmation of loyalty with a closed posture signals cognitive dissonance. Caleb licks his lips. This gesture is an attempt to moisten a mouth gone dry from a rush of adrenaline. His pupils contract as Marcus slowly slides the folder to the edge of the table. Quote 45, offering a quote 46 as a way to evoke guilt in the traitor and fixate his reaction. Quote 47. Caleb replies too quickly, reducing the latent reaction period to 0.5 seconds. Overcompensation in the response betrays the fear of losing control over the situation. Marcus closes his eyes for 2 seconds. In his consciousness, Caleb is already classified as an ___ quote, _48, ___. He is not angry. He is simply recalculating the probability of the deal's success, taking into account the coefficient of betrayal. 2. Stage. Psychological scan. System analysis. In this interaction, Marcus uses the method of controlled leakage to identify hidden intentions. Instead of a direct accusation, he creates a situation where Caleb must bear an increased cognitive load. Lying is an energy-consuming process. The brain must simultaneously hold true information in working memory, construct a false legend, and control involuntary bodily reactions. When Marcus offers Caleb a day off, he creates an additional logical knot in his head. Caleb fears that his absence on Monday, the day of the implementation of his own secret plan, will ruin everything. This forces him to neglect the natural pause before answering, which is a classic marker of deception. Neurobiologically, this looks like a struggle between the anterior cingulate cortex, responsible for monitoring conflicts, and the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, attempting to suppress impulsive truth. Marcus observes the physical leakages of this struggle: micro-expressions, changes in breathing rhythm, and verbal anomalies. 3. Stage. Scientific precedent. The scientific validation. In the 1960s, psychologist Paul Ekman began a large-scale study of human emotions and their expression. He discovered that there are so-called micro-expressions, involuntary movements of facial muscles lasting from 1/15th to 1/25th of a second. Ekman proved that these expressions are universal and practically do not yield to conscious control, as they are managed by the pyramidal and extrapyramidal nervous systems. In one of his experiments, participants were shown unpleasant medical films while being asked to smile and pretend they were looking at beautiful landscapes. Cameras captured instantaneous flashes of disgust and horror that broke through the masks of feigned calmness. In our scenario, Marcus acts as a high-precision Ekman scanner. He knows that the words of Caleb are merely noise. The true information is contained in the contraction of the muscle raising the corner of the mouth and in the unnatural speed of his speech. 4. Stage. Strategic protocol. The master key. To identify hidden opposition or to check the loyalty of a partner, it is necessary to use the technique of artificial complication of the environment. Control principle number 3. The information marker. If you suspect betrayal or a leak, pass to the suspect a unique fragment of false truth that looks valuable but is actually a dud. Practice. Create a situation where a person must make a choice between your interest and their own secret profit. Watch the speed of their reaction closely. An honest person takes time to think. A liar reacts instantaneously because their script is already written, and any deviation from it causes them panic. Remember, true loyalty does not need oaths. It manifests in the naturalness of pauses. 5. Stage, atmosphere of statics. Beyond the window lies the night city, resembling the motherboard of a giant computer. Millions of lights flicker in a strict rhythm. In the office of Marcus, sterile cleanliness reigns. On the black glass of the table, there is neither a speck of dust nor a fingerprint. The air smells of ozone and expensive polished wood. Time here flows slowly and predictably, obeying the laws of logic rather than random impulses of emotion. Module 4. Aesthetics of Scarcity and Management of Greed. The value of a thing is determined not by its utility, but by the pain that its absence causes. 1. Stage. The scenario. The observation. A closed showroom in a prestigious district of London. The walls are lined with gray cashmere, absorbing any sounds. In the center, on a pedestal under a narrow beam of light, rest the watches, a prototype that exists in only 3 copies. Julian stands nearby, with his hands behind his back. His client, Arthur, a man with a commanding face and a habit of possessing the best of everything, leans toward the display case. "This is not just a chronograph, Arthur," Julian says quietly. He does not look at the watch. He looks at Arthur's reflection in the glass of the display. It is an instrument for recording moments that others miss. Arthur reaches out his hand to touch the glass. Julian notices how the client's fingertips tremble slightly. Activation of the dopaminergic system in anticipation of possession. "How much?" Arthur asks shortly. An attempt to return the situation to a rational course through the establishment of a price. Julian takes a step back, increasing the distance between Arthur and the object of desire. "I am afraid the question of price is secondary here. Yesterday, one of the copies was reserved by a fund from Qatar. The remaining 2... Julian falls silent for 4 seconds. Numb. "Let us put it this way. One of them is no longer being considered for open sale. Application of the leaving train technique and creation of an artificial barrier." Arthur straightens up. His jaw muscles tighten, a manifestation of aggressive defense of his right to dominance. "I am ready to outbid any offer. Name a figure." Julian analyzes. The subject has transitioned into gambler mode. His prefrontal cortex is suppressed by the activity of the nucleus accumbens. Right now, he is not buying a watch. He is fighting for the status of the sole possessor. A figure is merely ink on paper, Arthur. What is more important is whether you are ready to wait 6 months while the master completes the adjustment of the mechanism specifically for the rhythm of your life. Or we can discuss this over a glass of water. Slowing the pace and imposing additional conditions that make the purchase earned rather than simply bought. 2. Stage, psychological scan, system analysis. In this scene, Julian uses the scarcity heuristic. The human brain is evolutionarily programmed to attach greater significance to resources whose access is limited. When Julian reports on the reservation of the fund from Qatar, he triggers the mechanism of loss aversion in Arthur's head. The fear of not receiving becomes stronger than the joy of possession. From the perspective of neurobiology, a sharp release of dopamine occurs in Arthur. Contrary to popular belief, dopamine is responsible not for pleasure, but for anticipation and search. The harder it is to obtain an object, the higher the dopaminergic tension. Julian intentionally creates obstacles, a 6-month wait, special selection, to turn the purchase into a biological triumph for Arthur. He is not selling a product. He is selling a victory in a competitive struggle. 3. Stage. Scientific precedent, the scientific validation. In 1975, researchers Stephen Wershel, Jerry Lee, and Ada Wool conducted an experiment that became a classic of social psychology, the cookie experiment. They asked 2 groups of subjects to evaluate the quality of cookies from 2 identical jars. In the first jar, there were 10 pieces. In the second, there were only 2. Despite the fact that the cookies were absolutely identical, the subjects from the second group evaluated them as tastier, more expensive, and of higher quality. Moreover, when the experimenters took away 8 cookies from the full jar in front of the participants, leaving only 2, the value of the product in the eyes of the people increased instantaneously. This experiment proved scarcity does not just change our perception of availability, it physically changes taste and aesthetic sensations. Julian uses this same pattern. He takes away the cookies from Arthur, making his object of desire almost sacred. 4. Stage. Strategic protocol, the master key. To manage demand and increase your own value in any deal, it is necessary to use the principle of distancing. Control. Principle number 4. Creating an entrance threshold. Never make your offer easy to accept. That which is obtained for free or without effort is devalued by the partner's brain within the first 10 minutes after the deal. Practice. Even if you are ready to agree right now, introduce a quote _77. Ask for time for coordination. Add a condition requiring effort from the other side, or point to the limited nature of the resource. Your task is to make the partner want to convince you to sell it to them. Whoever convinces occupies a subordinate position. 5. Stage. __. Quote _78. __. The showroom has an ideal temperature, exactly 21 degrees Celsius. The only source of light is directed at the mechanism, where gears move with mathematical precision. The shadow from Julian on the wall remains motionless, as if he is a part of the building's architecture. In this room, there is no place for haste. There is only cold calculation and absolute confidence that the result is already predetermined. Module 5. The Theater of the Collective Mind 1. Stage. The scenario. The observation. A huge conference hall lined with matte panels. There is a hum in the air. 300 people whose combined assets are measured in billions are waiting for a speech. Marcus stands behind the scenes. He checks the cuffs of his shirt. His pulse is 62 beats per minute. He enters a state of functional trance, where external stimuli are filtered out, leaving only strategic goals. He enters the stage. The light of the spotlights is blinding, but Marcus does not squint. He makes a pause of 12 seconds, simply scanning the hall. A pause of such duration creates a vacuum effect that the audience seeks to fill with their attention. Most of you will leave here today with nothing, Marcus says. The voice is amplified by the acoustic system, but sounds intimate, as if he is speaking into everyone's ear. __. Quote _82 __. Use of paradoxical intentional intervention. Removing pressure forces the audience to instinctively lean forward. Marcus sees Caleb in the 5th row, who, at a signal, is the first to begin applauding. 2 seconds later, 10 more people join him, planted agents of influence, and after 5 seconds, the hall explodes in an ovation. Marcus observes the reaction of the group. He sees how individual facial features are erased, replaced by a collective mask of expectation. He notes how people in the center of the hall begin to copy Caleb's posture, leaning forward, hands on knees. We are opening subscriptions to the Alpha Zero Fund. 50 slots. The first 30 are already taken by those who understood the terms before the presentation began. A lie about scarcity combined with social proof. He sees a man in the 3rd row feverishly taking out his phone. His face is flushed, activation of the sympathetic nervous system under the influence of social pressure. Marcus slightly tilts his head. In his mind, a verdict sounds. The critical thinking of the group is switched off. Transition to the absorption phase. 2. Stage. Psychological scan. System analysis. In this scene, Marcus masterfully manages the social proof effect and conformity. In conditions of high uncertainty, a new financial product, the human brain switches off individual analysis and transitions into a mode of copying the behavior of those around it. This is an evolutionary mechanism. If everyone is running in one direction, it means there is either food or salvation there. From the perspective of neurobiology, when Caleb and the group of agents begin to applaud, mirror neurons fire in the brains of the other participants. A suppression of activity occurs in the region of the prefrontal cortex responsible for the logical verification of facts. Instead, the amygdala is activated, which generates a fear of social isolation. Everyone is buying, but I am not. Marcus uses this fear to turn individual investors into a single organism driven by the herd instinct. 3. Stage. Scientific precedent. The scientific validation. In 1951, psychologist Solomon Asch conducted a series of experiments that became the foundation for understanding social pressure. A group of students was asked to compare the length of lines on cards. In the group, there was only one real subject. The others were actors who intentionally gave wrong answers. The results amazed the scientific community. 75% of the subjects at least once agreed with the obviously false opinion of the majority. When people were asked why they acted this way, many answered that they truly saw the lines as the majority saw them, or simply did not want to stand out. In Marcus's scenario, he creates an quote, _90, with the help of Caleb and the support group. He knows that even the most discerning investors in the hall are subject to this biological glitch. If you create the appearance that 30% of the group has already made a decision, the remaining 70 will follow them without extra questions. 4. Stage. Quote, _91, the master key. To manage the attention of a group or to defend against the manipulations of a collective, it is necessary to understand the mechanics of quote, _92, control. Principle number 5. Initiation of a cascade. Any action of yours in a group will have 10 times more weight if it is supported by at least 2 supporters in the first 3 seconds. Practice. If you need to impose an idea at a meeting, never do it alone. Create a quote, _93, in advance. As soon as you voice a thesis, your partner must immediately confirm it. This creates for the other participants a sense of objective reality that it is pointless to argue with. To avoid becoming a victim yourself, always physically distance yourself from the epicenter of the crowd. This helps the prefrontal cortex maintain autonomy. 5. Stage. Quote, _94, a glass of water stands on the stage. The surface of the liquid is motionless, despite the thunder of applause. Marcus stands in the center of this sonic chaos like a rock in the ocean. His breathing is steady, an inhale for 4 counts, an exhale for 4 counts. He sees every movement in the hall, every emotion, but he himself remains transparent. His mind is a clean table where profit figures replace the noise of the crowd. Module 6. The neurochemistry of concessions and the architecture of consent. Stage. Quote, _95, the observation. A private jet flying at an altitude of 11,000 meters. The cabin is finished in light leather and matte aluminum. Julian sits opposite Caleb, who over the last 30 minutes has transformed from a skeptic into an interested partner. Julian uses the quote, _96, technique, asking questions to which it is impossible to answer. Julian slightly tilts his head to the right, mirroring the interlocutor's posture. Synchronization of nonverbal signals to establish rapport. Undoubtedly, Caleb replies. The first, yes. And you, as a person with 10 years of experience, understand that classic hedging instruments are no longer effective on a 2-year interval? Julian pauses, giving Caleb the opportunity to feel his expertise. Use of a complementary trigger to lower the analytical barrier. It is obvious, Caleb nods. His breathing slows down, adjusting to the rhythm of Julian's breathing. The second quote 103 Julian notes. Caleb has stopped crossing his legs. His palms are open and rest on the armrests, a sign of decreased amygdala activity and readiness for cooperation. Julian takes a thin pen. Quote 104. Caleb hesitates for 3 seconds. His gaze is unfocused. He is processing information. Julian does not rush him. He knows that the neurochemical cascade has already been launched, Caleb says. The third quote, 106, consolidating the readiness for the final action. Julian does not smile. He merely makes a short entry in his notebook. His mind records. Quote 107-2. Stage. Quote 108. System analysis. In this interaction, Julian applies the quote 109 in combination with neurobiological imprinting. When a person consistently agrees with several obvious statements, their brain seeks to maintain cognitive consistency. Every quote 110 lowers the critical threshold of the prefrontal cortex. From the perspective of biochemistry, oxytocin, the hormone of trust and social attachment, begins to be produced in Caleb's body. This happens because Julian masterfully quote 111 his posture and rhythm of breathing. Caleb's mirror neurons send a signal to his limbic system. Quote 112. As a result, Caleb begins to perceive Julian's arguments not as external pressure, but as his own logical conclusions. Resistance is replaced by a sense of relief from the correct solution found. 3. Stage. Scientific precedent. The scientific validation. In 1966, psychologists from Stanford, Jonathan Friedman and Scott Fraser, conducted an experiment known as the foot-in-the-door technique. They asked homeowners to place tiny, almost unnoticeable signs about traffic safety on their plots. Almost everyone agreed. 2 weeks later, the same people were approached with a request to install huge, ugly, "Be careful behind the wheel" posters that blocked the view from the window. Surprisingly, 76% of those who had previously agreed to the small sign gave permission for the huge poster. In the control group, where the small request was not presented, only 17% agreed. This experiment proved a person who has made a small concession or given preliminary consent feels an internal need to be consistent in their actions, even if this goes against their interests. Julian uses Caleb exactly this way. He leads him through a series of micro-concessions so that the final demand seems like a natural continuation of the path. 4. Stage. Strategic protocol. The master key. To achieve the maximum level of persuasiveness, it is necessary to build a dialogue as a consistent confirmation of the interlocutor's reality. Control of principle number 6. The inertia of consent. Never start negotiations with the main demand. Your goal is to get at least 3 quote 118 confirmations on secondary, obvious points. Practice. Use linking questions. Quote 119 quote 120 Every such question is a brick in the foundation of trust. As soon as inertia is created, present your main proposal as a logical conclusion from the partner's previous answers. It will be physically difficult for them to refuse you without entering into a conflict with themselves. 5. Stage. Atmosphere of statics. In the cabin of the aircraft, a silent air humidification system is working. Beyond the porthole is an endless field of clouds illuminated by the setting sun, which seems frozen on one line. Inside, everything is motionless. Not a shadow of vibration, not an extra rustle. The glass of water on Julian's table is perfectly still. In this isolation from the world, there exists only a pure structure of persuasion, where one mind softly but irreversibly absorbs the will of another. Module 7. The Ethics of the Finale and Maintenance of Strategic Distance 1. Stage. Quote, _122, the observation. A private park closed to outsiders. The paths are sprinkled with fine gravel, which makes a dry, rhythmic crunch under the soles of expensive shoes. Eleanor and Marcus walk side by side. The asset takeover deal was completed 30 minutes ago. Marcus looks animated. His stride has become wider, and he gestures frequently. Quote, _123, Marcus turns to her, expecting an emotional confirmation of his triumph. Search for social stroking and confirmation of quote, _124, status. Eleanor does not change her pace. Her hands are calmly lowered. Her shoulders are relaxed. She does not smile back. Quote, _125, Her voice sounds like cool silk. Demonstration of emotional autonomy and maintenance of professional distance. Marcus freezes for a moment. His smile fades, replaced by an expression of slight confusion. He feels as if his quote, _126, has suddenly been deprived of oxygen. Reaction to the lack of a mirroring response. Quote, _127, he asks, attempting to restore contact through informal proximity. An attempt to erase the boundaries of the hierarchy after a successful act of dominance, Eleanor replies. She stops and looks Marcus straight in the eyes. She turns and leaves without waiting for an answer. She does not look back. Her silhouette remains perfectly straight until she disappears behind a bend in the alley. She has left Marcus in a state of slight hunger and cognitive dissonance. He won in the deal, but he lost in personal influence. 2. Stage. Quote, _130, system analysis. In the final module, we observe the implementation of the quote, _131, and the management of Quote, _132, Eleanor understands that after the completion of a major case, a phase of emotional decline follows. If she shares the triumph with Marcus, she will become equal in his eyes. Quote, _133, which will inevitably erode her authority in the future. From the perspective of neurobiology, Eleanor prevents the formation of an excessive trust rapport. She leaves Marcus in a state of quote, _134, the Zeigarnik effect. Since she did not give him the expected emotional discharge, his brain will continue to replay their meeting, trying to find a way to quote, _135, her approval. This guarantees her control over him at the beginning of the next cycle. She maintains strategic distance, turning herself into an unattainable ideal of efficiency. 3. Stage. Quote, _136, the scientific validation. In 1993, Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman conducted a study that overturned the idea of how we evaluate experience. subjects were offered two variants of immersing their hands in icy water. A short one, 60 seconds at a temperature of 14 degrees, and a long one, 90 seconds, where the last 30 seconds the water temperature rose to 15 degrees. Despite the fact that the long version included the same 60 seconds of pain, plus another 30 seconds of discomfort, the majority of people chose it for repetition. Why? Because the finale was less painful. The brain evaluates an event not by the total sum of sensations, but by the brightest moment, the peak, and the very last one, the finale. Eleanor uses this knowledge in a mirrored way. She makes the finale quote, _137__, so that the peak, the triumph of the deal, remains associated exclusively with her efficiency, rather than with a pleasant dinner. She manages the memory of Marcus, making her presence a scarce and valuable resource. 4. Stage, __, quote, _138, the master key. To maintain a leadership position and long-term influence, it is necessary to masterfully possess the art of departure. Control principle number 7. The art of disappearing. Your value in the eyes of a partner or client reaches its maximum at the moment of the deal's completion. Do not allow this feeling to degrade into mundane familiarity. Practice. Terminate the contact first. Do not wait until the topic of conversation exhausts itself or an awkward pause arises. Leave at the peak, leaving behind a trail of understatement and flawless professionalism. Remember, whoever leaves last often takes with them the trash of others' emotions. Whoever leaves first takes the power with them. 5. Stage, atmosphere of statics. The park is submerged in shadow. The wind dies down, and the surface of the decorative pond becomes like a sheet of polished black marble. A fallen sycamore leaf lies on the water without a single splash. The silence becomes absolute. The mechanics of self-possession have worked flawlessly. The system returns to a state of rest, ready for the next cycle of influence. Conclusion. The humanitarian balance of power. We have analyzed the mechanisms that turn human interaction into a precise science. We have seen how Julian, Eleanor, and Marcus use cold calculation to direct the flows of will and resources. However, knowledge of mechanics imposes on the researcher a special obligation that goes beyond simple profit figures. True self-possession is not only the ability to dominate others, it is, above all, the ability not to become a slave to your own instruments. Dark psychology gives power, but power without an ethical foundation turns a person into a function. The understanding of how triggers of fear, greed, and social pressure work should serve not for destruction, but for the creation of stable and honest structures. A strong person is not the one who can manipulate everyone they meet, but the one who, possessing such an ability, chooses the path of dignity and strategic partnership. The principle of supreme integrity. Ultimately, self-possession is a tool for preserving your own personality in an aggressive environment. When you understand the rules of the game, you cease to be a victim of circumstances. But true wisdom lies in using this clarity of mind to establish justice. Your calmness should become not a wall separating you from the world, but a filter that cuts off everything petty, false, and destructive. To be the master of your feelings means to have the possibility to choose virtue consciously, rather than out of weakness or habit. Beyond the window of the laboratory, dawn begins. Light slowly fills the space, making the contours of objects clear and understandable. In this clarity, there is no place for manipulation or fear. There is only purity of intentions and the understanding that the highest form of strength is the ability to remain human in any circumstances. Every decision of yours now weighs more because it is dictated not by impulse, but by a conscious choice. Order is restored. The internal compass points north. Whoever understands the mechanisms of the psyche receives true freedom. Subscribe to analyze the hidden laws of human behavior together. And be sure to write in the comments which strategy to analyze in the next episode.